Lower Dimension, Dou Domain. 2 days had passed since the conclusion of the Fire Spirit Clan visit. In fact, Xiao Yan's round trip to the Fire Spirit Clan had taken less than half a day. Yet in that brief period, he once again sent shockwaves through the Dou Domain. A Dou D powerhouse from ancient times, who had broken through the dimensional shackles of the continent of Dou Qi, had been invited back by Xiao Yan from the Fire Spirit Clan. That figure was none other than Tuasha, Ancient Emperor, who had now stepped into the level of a Heavenly Supreme. With Tuasha, Ancient Emperor joining, the Dou Domain now possessed a total of 5 Heavenly Supreme experts. Currently, in the Great Thousand Worlds, only the Primordial Divine Clan and the Myriad Spirit Divine Clan could boast 5 Heavenly Supremes, with few other factions even coming close. Today, on the Flame Emperor continent, a vast square was bustling with activity. Due to the addition of Tuasha, Ancient Emperor, Xiao Yan had convened a grand meeting for the entire Dou Domain. Countless Dou Domain leaders and powerhouses had gathered in response to his summons, including the primordial ancient dragon clan from the former Ruins continent and several renowned experts who had joined the Dou Domain from the Great Thousand Worlds. The crowd numbered in the hundreds, so large that the meeting couldn't be held within the Grand Hall and had to be conducted in the spacious square outside. At this moment, all the attendees were seated in their designated areas. The attendees were divided into 3 categories. First, the leaders of over 100 clans from within the Dou Domain. Second, the sect masters and patriarchs of powerful factions on par with those clans. And third, the stewards responsible for various administrative affairs across the Dou Domain, all personally appointed by Dragon Origin, regardless of their affiliation, be it the 100 clans, the 100 sects, or others. Those present were all true supreme-tier experts. Yet now, every clan leader and sect master had their gaze fixed on the highest platform at the front of the square. There, 3 tiers of seating were arranged in descending order of prominence. The lowest tier held around 20 figures, all seated with great dignity. These were the Earth-ranked elders of the Dou Domain, most of them at the Earth Supreme level. Though Kailin and Xun'er were the Flame Emperor's wives, the rules dictated they too sat in this 3rd tier. Among them were also Xiao Yan's mentor Yao Chun, the former strongest figure of the first fragmented world, the Heavenly Emperor of the Heavenly Clan, and the recently joined Lu Xian. Above them, the 2nd tier had only 4 seats, occupied by the most respected figures in the current Dou Domain. Dragon Origin, leader of the Primordial Ancient Dragon Clan. Primordial Sacred Flame, master of the Primordial Sacred Domain. His successor Ta Pang, and the newly joined Fire Flame Monarch, Tuasha, Ancient Emperor. Of the 4 Heavenly Supremes present, Tuasha, Ancient Emperor stood as the most formidable. Primordial Sacred Flame, having transferred most of his strength to Xiao Yan, had yet to fully recover. However, seeing Xiao Yan's achievements made him feel his sacrifice was entirely worthwhile. Though Tuasha, Ancient Emperor, had yet to fully adapt to the Dou Domain's environment, he was deeply impressed by the world Xiao Yan had created. He had never imagined that the inheritance he had once casually left behind on the continent of Dou Qi would give rise to such a powerful lord of the Dou Domain. Dragon Origin was the most elated of all. To him, the Dou Domain was the continuation of the ancient Dou Qi world. Not even the ancient Emperor Alliance could have foreseen Xiao Yan developing this new world to such heights. Dragon Origin believed that if his father could witness this scene, he would surely feel at peace. Yet strength alone was not enough to halt progress. In the Great Thousand Worlds, no matter how powerful one became, resting on past achievements could only lead to decline and destruction. This truth was clear to both Dragon Origin and Xiao Yan, which was precisely why Xiao Yan had called for this meeting. Now seated at the highest seat above Dragon Origin and the other 4, Xiao Yan, as the Lord of the Dou Domain, gazed down at the gathered figures. Under their expectant eyes, he finally began to speak. Clan leaders and elders, I have summoned you today to discuss the future direction of the Dou Domain. His voice was calm yet commanding. A few days ago, I visited the Fire Spirit Clan and brought back a senior who once granted me an inheritance, helping me ascend to the Dou D level. Many of you may already know this, but let me formally introduce him, Tuasha, Ancient Emperor. To begin this meeting, I hereby declare that from this day forth, Tuasha, Ancient Emperor will be one of the 4 heavenly elders of the Dou Domain. If I am ever absent, all authority over the Dou Domain will be jointly managed by these 4 heavenly elders. Xiao Yan's words echoed across the square. Hearing this, the Tuasha ancient emperor could only helplessly wave his hand at the crowd below. Although Xiao Yan had given him a seat as a heavenly elder, the Tuasha ancient emperor originally had no interest in these trivial matters. After this, he would rather find a quiet place to relax, occasionally sparring with some powerful individuals. Let's begin discussing the future direction of the Dou Domain, Xiao Yan said after appointing the Tuasha ancient emperor as a heavenly elder. Now that most of the matters he needed to address in the Great Thousand Worlds had been resolved, he knew he would gradually have more free time. This period was perfect for developing the Dou Domain. In the past, Xiao Yan had no interest in such administrative affairs, but now, with the responsibility of protecting everything on his shoulders, he had no choice but to take them seriously. Once Xiao Yan introduced the topic, everyone below immediately started discussing it, and soon someone stood up to voice their opinion. The first to stand was Lu Xian, who had joined the Dou Domain after the 10,000 Pills gathering. Due to her exceptional alchemy skills, Xiao Yan had unhesitatingly made her an Earth-rank elder. Currently, the Dou Domain is one of the top 10 super lower dimensions, with several heavenly supremes stationed here, but the background of the lower dimensional worlds is still overshadowed by the extraterritorial clans. These extraterritorial clans are still actively searching for weaker dimensions to invade. Sooner or later, the Dou Domain will inevitably face some form of interference, Lu Xian said. Do you have any good suggestions? Dragon Origin, seated to the left of the heavenly elder position, asked, looking at Lu Xian. I have 2 proposals. The first is that the Dou Domain could send a certain number of powerful individuals to search for other dimensional worlds in the lower dimensional spaces around the Dou Domain. The range could be boldly extended to several billion miles. If any lower dimension is found to be under attack by the extraterritorial clans, we should assist them. After rescuing those dimensions, we could pull them closer to the Dou Domain to form a defensive line, Lu Xian said. Save them first, then make them fight for us? Heh, your strategy is as devious as your face, Dragon Origin remarked with a faint smile. Thank you for the compliment, Heavenly Elder. By the way, I also have a lower dimension under my control, and I will have it move closer to the Dou Domain, Lu Xian continued. I had once considered establishing a lower dimension alliance, but now it seems too far out of reach. So, I'll share my original plan with the Dou Domain. The crowd on the plaza nodded in agreement, finding Lu Xian's proposal quite sound. At the top of the plaza, Xiao Yan smiled slightly. He was pleased to hear that Lu Xian had given up her original plan. That was actually a good thing, as Xiao Yan thought Lu Xian had been somewhat naive. Many things shouldn't be assumed too easily. The practical factors needed to be considered first and foremost. However, Xiao Yan quickly discerned a flaw in Lu Xian's proposal. Heh, Miss Lu, I have a question, Dragon Origin said, turning to Lu Xian. Do you have any idea what a range of several billion miles means? For someone at the supreme stage, crossing such a distance would take at least 10 years. From a spatial perspective, this range is equivalent to tens of thousands of times the size of the Dou Domain itself, encompassing at least 4,000 or 5,000 lower dimensional worlds. Have you considered how many people would be needed to consolidate these lower dimensions and the associated costs? Lu Xian was rendered speechless, as she hadn't calculated these factors. Even assuming all the lower dimensions are of ordinary rank, the extraterritorial clans are very active in these realms, so to consolidate one lower dimension, we'd need at least a few supreme stage experts working together. That means we'd need over 10,000 supreme experts. Of course, the Dou Domain can still muster that many, Dragon Origin said, but the cost would be astronomical. The lower dimensional spaces don't have the spiritual energy available in the Great Thousand Worlds, so the people involved would need to carry enough supreme spiritual liquid to sustain themselves. With each person carrying 10,000 units of supreme spiritual liquid, we'd need 100 million units just for one group. Over the long term, the demand would exceed 1 billion, or even tens of billions. However, that's still something the Dou Domain could manage, Dragon Origin added. The real challenge is finding those lower dimensions. The extraterritorial clans example is right in front of us. Their evil clan factions are vast in number, and their power is crushing to the lower dimensional worlds. Yet, after 10,000 years, they've only discovered less than half of the worlds they're searching for, fewer than 100,000. By this calculation, finding those thousands of lower dimensions would take over 1,000 years. Who would want to spend 1,000 years to dig for a few grains of sand in the sea? As Long Yuan's voice fell, the entire arena was plunged into silence. Those who had just supported Lu Xian's proposal now exchanged glances, speechless. Xiao Yan, standing above the square, still smiled faintly. The issue Long Yuan pointed out was exactly what he had expected, and Lu Xian's expression was a bit awkward. She hadn't anticipated that the real obstacle to this proposal would be a matter of time. However, at that moment, another faint chuckle spread across the square. Hee, I actually think this matter can be accomplished, though it will need some adjustments. The speaker was Tuasha, Ancient Emperor, and upon hearing this, everyone quickly turned their gaze toward him. Xiao Yan also smiled and said, Senior Ancient Emperor, if you have a good suggestion, please share it with us. This matter is actually not that difficult, Tuasha, Ancient Emperor said. Since manpower and cost are no longer issues, and the space range is too vast, why not simply shrink it? Moreover, this can be carried out in stages. In the first stage, we directly explore the lower dimensional worlds within a radius of several 100 million miles. According to calculations, there should be 4 or 5 lower dimensional worlds within this range. The exploration can be completed in just a few months, or even shorter. We can start from here. In the second stage, the exploration will expand to a radius of 1 billion miles, which would take just a few dozen years, but it would cover over 100 lower dimensional worlds. Since the ambition to cover thousands of lower dimensional worlds is too large, let's scale it down. Shrinking the scope is indeed a solution. This would also reduce the number of powerful individuals needed and the supreme spiritual liquid required, Long Yuan said in agreement. In fact, over 100 lower dimensional worlds would be enough to establish a formidable defensive line for the Dou Domain. These things I don't fully understand, so I'll leave the discussion to you all. I'm just offering a reference, Tuasha, Ancient Emperor said, turning his gaze toward Lu Xian. Don't you have 2 proposals? What's the second one? At his words, Lu Xian set aside the flaws in the first proposal and responded. Aside from consolidating the nearby dimensional worlds, the other suggestion is to find a large continent within the Great Thousand Worlds as a base. Then, we could fully open the spatial passage between the Dou Domain and this continent. This way, if there's a problem in the Dou Domain, the Great Thousand Worlds will be informed, and the people in the Dou Domain can directly escape to the Great Thousand Worlds. Upon hearing this, everyone present in the square nodded. In fact, the idea of connecting the Dou Domain and the Great Thousand Worlds had already started to take root in everyone's minds, because the experts in the Dou Domain longed for the Great Thousand Worlds. Although Long Yuan had already declared that anyone wishing to venture into the Great Thousand Worlds must be above the supreme stage. Why look for a continent? Aren't the territories on the Ruins continent good enough? Long Yuan asked. Because the Ruins continent was shattered during the world-ending war, although many forces still compete there, it is considered a relatively desolate and remote place compared to other continents in the Great Thousand Worlds, Lu Xian explained. I agree that the Ruins continent is remote and sparsely populated compared to other continents. However, most of the other continents in the Great Thousand Worlds are already claimed. So finding a large enough continent to serve as a base for the Dou Domain is almost impossible unless we conquer it by force, Long Yuan said. It doesn't need to be conquered by force, Tuasha, Ancient Emperor interjected. When I first arrived in the Great Thousand Worlds, I wandered around for a long time and visited many continents. Some of the continents in the Great Thousand Worlds are often sold. A continent with a radius of several million miles can be worth several million supreme spiritual liquids. Later, Fire Spirit Ancestor followed this model, but he rented instead of buying, making it several times cheaper. Several million miles is still too small, Xiao Yan said. He recalled the abandoned continent where he had once battled Fire Spirit Ancestor, which was about several million miles in radius. Such an area could be destroyed with a single blow by a high-ranking heavenly supreme. For a new base, the continent needs to be at least 50 million miles in radius. However, Such large continents are rare in the Great Thousand Worlds. Besides the 10 major supercontinents, there are probably only a dozen or so, and the cost of purchasing one could easily run into several billion supreme spiritual liquids, or even more, Xiao added. I actually have a good option for a large continent, Tuasha Ancient Emperor said. Upon hearing the words of the Tuasha Ancient Emperor, everyone nodded. As one of the 7 great lower dimension alliances, the Sacred Alliance's leader had once battled the 7 extraterritorial heavenly emperors, a tale that had reverberated throughout the Great Thousand Worlds. Naturally, the powerful individuals present were all familiar with this story. However, when the Sacred Alliance was mentioned, everyone couldn't help but recall the recent tragic news. The Sacred Alliance, which had moved to the lower dimension from the Great Thousand Worlds, was ambushed by a coalition of 10 extraterritorial heavenly emperors. The entire Sacred Alliance was destroyed, and the whereabouts of its leader remained unknown. His life or death was still a mystery. Since everyone knows of the Sacred Alliance, I assume you've also heard the news of its destruction, said Tuasha Ancient Emperor. The Sacred Alliance was attacked by the extraterritorial clan only after migrating to the lower dimension, but originally, it was based in the Great Thousand Worlds. Their base was a vast continent, measuring over 80 million miles across, surrounded by many subsidiary continents. As I understand it, after their migration, that continent was left vacant. While they didn't sell it off, it's likely some people remain there guarding it. In any case, the Sacred Alliance no longer exists, and if there are any still guarding that continent, we might be able to buy it. As fellow breakthroughers of the dimensional shackles, such a negotiation should be easier. Moreover, there's something interesting. I've been to that continent before. From a high vantage point, the continent looks like a flame shape. It would make an excellent base for the Dou Domain in the Great Thousand Worlds, added Tuasha Ancient Emperor. Over 80 million miles, you say? That's certainly an excellent option, Xiao murmured softly. Indeed, as Tuasha Ancient Emperor described, the continent sounded perfect for establishing the Dou Domain's base in the Great Thousand Worlds, and its area was already close to that of the Dou Domain itself. However, purchasing that continent would require a significant amount of supreme spiritual liquid. If we wish to set up sufficient defenses, we'd need to buy the surrounding continents as well. When all is said and done, it would take at least 4 to 5 billion supreme spiritual liquid, said Tuasha Ancient Emperor. Hiss. The moment these words left Tuasha Ancient Emperor's mouth, everyone present gasped. 5 billion supreme spiritual liquid. What kind of concept was that? This amount could easily drain the entire treasury of clans like the Ice Spirit Clan and Fire Spirit Clan. Xiao also felt a bit awkward at the mention of such a vast sum. Indeed, establishing a base in the Great Thousand Worlds was essential, but this figure seemed a bit too exaggerated. It seems it's time for me to share my opinion. At that moment, the primordial sacred flame from the Heavenly Elder's seat spoke up. Senior Sacred Flame, what are your thoughts? Xiao asked. I believe this continent is absolutely essential for us. It might be the turning point for the Dou Domain, as the stage for the Dou Domain is in the lower dimension. While this continent would represent our position and prestige in the Great Thousand Worlds. Moreover, I don't think 5 billion supreme spiritual liquid is too much to ask. The reason is simple, said the primordial sacred flame. Xiao, you are now the champion of the 10,000 pills gathering and have even refined the rare sacred pill. In the coming decades, the name of the Flame Emperor will echo throughout the Great Thousand Worlds. By then, many renowned powerhouses will come to join us, but most of them will be from the Great Thousand Worlds. Naturally, we can't ask them to migrate to the lower dimension, so we'll need a sufficiently large continent to house these powerhouses. The Relic continent is too remote, sparsely populated, and unsuitable for housing these experts. In the end, in my view, as more and more powerhouses join us, the strength of the Dou Domain will continuously grow. If managed well, the 5 billion supreme spiritual liquid we spend will be recouped in no time. The primordial sacred flame concluded. Once the primordial sacred flame finished speaking, everyone present immediately nodded in agreement. Compared to the 2 proposals earlier from Lu Xian, the primordial sacred flame's opinion was far clearer and more convincing. I agree with the opinion of Elder Primordial Sacred Flame. This is definitely a deal where the revenue outweighs the cost, and it's worth a try, said the elder of the medicine sect, who had been a silent listener up until now. Upon hearing this, Xiao smiled. Elder medicine had managed the Tianfu alliance on the continent of Douqi for many years, and even he agreed, which made Xiao feel that the primordial sacred flames view had a high chance of success. I agree. I also think it's feasible. I believe it can work. As more and more people began to agree with the primordial sacred flame, Xiao could only shake his head helplessly. He smiled at everyone and said, "Since this is the consensus, let's implement it." With that, Xiao turned to Long Yuan below and asked, "Senior Long Yuan, the Dou Domain has been under your management for some time. Do you know how much supreme spiritual liquid we can currently access from the Treasury?" "It might be difficult to retrieve the supreme spiritual liquid from the Treasury," Long Yuan replied, shaking his head. "Because of many matters, a large portion of the Treasury has already been depleted. Isn't it less than 700 million? Xiao frowned upon hearing this. He had thought that there would be at least a few billion supreme spiritual liquids remaining, but to his surprise, the actual amount was only half of what he had expected. Now, the goal was 50 billion supreme spiritual liquids. I have about 1.2 billion supreme spiritual liquids here." While Xiao was troubled by the shortage of supreme spiritual liquids, the primordial sacred flame spoke up. Then, Taipeng beside him took out a black cosmic bag. As the bag opened, 12 more cosmic bags were revealed. A dense aura of spiritual power poured out, and those above the Earth's supreme level immediately deduced that each of these bags contained at least 100 million supreme spiritual liquids. With the appearance of 1.2 billion supreme spiritual liquids, the powerful individuals below couldn't help but feel their eyes burn with excitement. Most of them had never seen so much supreme spiritual liquid in their lives. Including the 1.2 billion supreme spiritual liquids Taipeng had retrieved, the Dou Domain now barely had 2 billion. But it was still far from the target of 50 billion. There were still over 30 billion to go. If necessary, I could go back and borrow another 10 or 20 billion supreme spiritual liquids from the Fire Spirit clan, the Tuasha Ancient Emperor said, not wanting to be outdone after Taipeng's display. As soon as Tuasha Ancient Emperor spoke, the elders sitting at the earth seat below all lit up with excitement. They knew that Tuasha Ancient Emperor had always been stationed at the Fire Spirit clan, and after thousands of years, he must have great merit with them. If he could indeed borrow 20 billion supreme spiritual liquids from the Fire Spirit clan, then only 10 billion would remain to reach the final goal. But at this moment, a voice unexpectedly came from the front of the plaza. "Forget about borrowing the supreme spiritual liquids from the Fire Spirit clan." Xiao voice rang out from above the plaza. "You should all know that I visited the Fire Spirit clan 2 days ago. Given the circumstances, asking for more from them would be pushing them too hard. Then where do you plan to get the remaining 30 billion supreme spiritual liquids?" the Tuasha Ancient Emperor asked. "No need to rush. There are always ways," Xiao said. "Since all of you are here to discuss this today, no one should be left out. Anyone can offer suggestions?" As his voice fell, Long Yuan slowly stood up. "Senior Long Yuan, have you thought of a solution?" Xiao asked upon seeing Long Yuan rise. "There is a way, but it will require quite a bit of effort," Long Yuan said. "Senior Long Yuan, feel free to share," Xiao replied. Long Yuan nodded and said, "As the Tuasha Ancient Emperor just mentioned, the sale of continents. Continents are important footholds for most forces in the Great Thousand Worlds. So, if we take this route, the Dou Domain might be able to obtain more than 30 billion supreme spiritual liquids, though the cost will be high." Sale of continents? Hearing this, Xiao and everyone else in the plaza were momentarily stunned. You all should know that the primordial ancient dragon clan holds over 4,000 continents in the relic continent. However, more than half of these continents are abandoned, while the remaining 1,000 or so continents, although inhabited by descendants of the primordial ancient dragon clan, are, as Miss Lu Xian said, mostly remote. But if we sell them at a low price, there will surely be someone interested, Long Yuan continued. The crowd gasped at Long Yuan's words, a wave of astonishment sweeping through them. especially those who had been summoned by Long Yuan from the primordial ancient dragon clan in the Relic continent. They could hardly believe their ears. The 4,000 continents in the Relic continent had been fought for by the primordial ancient dragon clan over nearly 10,000 years. Yet Long Yuan was now proposing to sell them all. Senior Long Yuan, this matter should be approached carefully. There's no need to rush, Xiao said after hearing Long Yuan's plan. Although he understood that selling some continents might help them acquire 30 billion supreme spiritual liquids, the Relic continent had been the foundation of the primordial ancient dragon clan for millennia. I've actually been thinking about this for a long time, and I had the idea several hundred years ago, Long Yuan replied. I realized that the Relic continent, a barren land, is no longer suitable for the primordial ancient dragon clan's development. At that time, my plan was to relocate the clan to more prosperous areas in the Great Thousand Worlds. However, a few difficulties prevented the plan from being implemented. First, there were no suitable continents for relocation. Second, there are some mysteries left by our ancestors in the Relic continent that haven't been solved. Hearing this, Xiao and the others present were once again taken aback. They hadn't expected that Long Yuan had been considering the relocation of the primordial ancient dragon clan for hundreds of years. In fact, the new continent that the Dou Domain was looking for now had become an opportunity for this matter. Now that Long Yuan brought up this issue, he first believed that the original continent of the Sacred Alliance was not remote and could serve as the new land for the primordial ancient dragon clan. Secondly, many issues related to the ancient ancestors had been largely resolved. As for the cost of relocation, they could gradually sell off the 4,000 fragments of the ruins continent to fund the move. Since Senior Long Yuan has already been planning this matter for a long time, we might as well take this opportunity in the meeting to finalize these plans. And if there are any unexpected circumstances, the Dou Domain may still be able to accommodate the entire primordial ancient dragon clan, Xiao said to Long Yuan. Now, please go ahead with your plan to sell the continent. Long Yuan nodded and continued. The primordial ancient dragon clan possesses more than 4,500 fragments of the ruins continent, with nearly 4,000 of them abandoned. If these continents are sold at high prices, few will be interested, so they must be sold at lower prices. If all the large continents are sold, the supreme spiritual liquid we could obtain would exceed 4 billion. The others were secretly astonished. They couldn't imagine what 4 billion supreme spiritual liquid would mean, but when they thought about the cost behind it, 4,000 continents, they couldn't help but feel helpless. That meant that on average, each continent would only be worth 1 million supreme spiritual liquid. Such a price was far too low. Then who would buy these continents? Xiao asked again. Although Long Yuan's price was low, 4 billion supreme spiritual liquid was still not a small amount. We can sell them to the ancient royal court, Long Yuan said. Before the Apocalypse War, the ancient royal court was the overlord of the ruins continent, claiming to have 15 heavenly supremes. Although the royal court was badly battered in the war and severely weakened by the extraterritorial clans, their foundation remains extremely formidable. If they plan to retake control of the ruins continent, selling them the 4,000 continents could be a good route. Xiao was naturally no stranger to the ancient royal court. It, along with the primordial ancient dragon clan, had been one of the 3 superpowers of the ruins continent. When Xiao first arrived at the ruins continent, he had clashed with several of the ancient royal court's Earth Supreme Elders. One of them, who practiced the Dragon Shark 100 Bodies technique, still left a deep impression on him. Then, as Senior Long Yuan suggests, let's try selling these continents to the ancient royal court, Xiao said to Long Yuan. After this meeting, Senior Long Yuan, please handle the negotiations with the ancient royal court, while I will head directly to the original site of the Sacred Alliance. If any of their powerful members are still stationed there, I will attempt to negotiate with them. The continent of the Sacred Alliance is located in the southern part of the Great Thousand Worlds, in the Blowing Membrane region, just a few 100 million miles away from the territory of the extraterritorial clans. Are you going alone? Asked Tuasha, ancient emperor from below. The Sacred Alliance has just been destroyed. It may not be wise for us to send a large force, so I will go alone. Although it is near the extraterritorial region, I am confident that as long as I don't encounter someone at the Sacred Emperor level, I can protect myself, Xiao replied. Then, we shall split up our tasks, Long Yuan said to Xiao. This meeting has already established the plans for the next 1 to several years. Do we need to discuss any other issues? The plans for the next few years will be our first step. Let's complete this step before moving on, Xiao said, then looked toward the crowd in the plaza. He raised his voice, which rang out clearly. Everyone here must have heard the earlier discussion. At this stage, we need to accomplish only 4 things, one of which is the gathering of the lower dimensions around the Dou Domain, as discussed earlier by Elder Lu Xian and Elder Ancient Emperor. As per the discussion, each team will need at least 4 supreme experts. I wonder if anyone is willing to lead a team from the Dou Domain to carry out this task. Xiao voice echoed across the plaza, and the people present looked at each other in surprise. Then, someone quickly stood up from their seat. Domain Lord, I am the clan leader of the Yun clan, and we currently have 4 supreme experts in our clan. The Yun clan is willing to take on this task in the name of the Dou Domain and explore the surrounding lower dimensions, said a man dressed in white. The reason the clan leader of the Yun clan dared to stand up like this was that he had also investigated the current situation of the lower dimensional worlds. Although the extraterritorial evil clan was rampantly attacking many lower dimensional worlds, it seemed that most of the evil factions were led by a royal-level evil demon comparable to a supreme stage expert. With his own strength at the 3rd grade supreme level, the Yun clan leader felt confident enough to confront these evil factions. Currently, if he were unlucky enough to encounter a more powerful evil faction, it would simply be his misfortune. Since the Yun clan leader is willing to take on this heavy responsibility, I shall gift you something to protect your life. As the Yun clan leader stepped forward, Long Yuan smiled. He then waved his hand, and a glowing orb appeared before the Yun clan leader. Inside the orb was a golden spear, and the fluctuations emanating from it were of such a level that it could only be considered a treasure of immense value. Seeing Long Yuan directly give the Yun clan leader a treasure of such caliber, the other clan leaders around them all showed envious expressions. In the Great Thousand Worlds, treasures of this kind could only be owned by experts at the supreme stage or higher, above the 7th grade. Following the Yun clan leader, nearly 20 clan leaders stood up, one after another. With this, Long Yuan added a rule. Each clan could only send 1 supreme expert at most, leaving their strongest warriors behind to guard their clans. In the end, 16 clan leaders were selected, divided into 4 teams, each of whom received a treasure from Long Yuan. Heh, I too wish to go and stretch my legs. A faint chuckle came from the end of the floor seats. This time, it was the leader of the Tian clan, the Tian Emperor. Once the strongest expert in the first fragmented world, he now still outclassed the other clan leaders by far. His 8th grade supreme power would make him a respected elder in any first-rate force within the Great Thousand Worlds. Domain Lord, if possible, I wish to travel alone. After the Tian Emperor expressed his desire to search for other lower-dimensional worlds, he cupped his hands towards Xiao. Granted. Xiao immediately approved the Tian Emperor's request. As an 8th grade supreme, Tian Emperor's strength alone surpassed that of the 16 clan leaders. I will contribute as well. After the Tian Emperor's decision, another elder stepped forward. This was the elder of Candle Flame, who had brought several heavenly flames from the Great Thousand Assembly. His strength was also grade supreme, making him more than qualified for the task. The request of Elder of Candle Flame to join the plan was granted by Xiao, and shortly after, several elders from the primordial ancient dragon clan were also approved to participate. In the end, a total of 11 teams were formed to explore the surrounding lower dimensional worlds of the Dou Domain, consisting of 23 members in total. These 11 teams would depart from the Dou Domain, each carrying a certain amount of supreme spiritual liquid. In lower dimensional spaces, which were as empty as the void, supreme experts would deplete their spiritual energy quickly without a way to replenish it. However, with enough supreme spiritual liquid, they could restore their energy even after it ran out. This time, each of you represents the Dou Domain in the battle against the extraterritorial clans. After the mission is completed, everyone will receive a reward of supreme spiritual liquid worth over 10 million. But remember, your safety is the most important thing, no matter the situation. Xiao stood up and addressed the 23 selected individuals. Rest assured, Domain Lord. We will complete the mission and return victorious. The 23 individuals responded confidently, bowing to Xiao Yin. Xiao Yin nodded, looking at the determined group. He then continued, today's meeting, aside from confirming the exploration of the surrounding lower dimensional worlds of the Dou Domain, has also set out the goals for the next few years. The first task is to sell the many fragmented lands of the relic continent to the ancient royal court. This task will be carried out by Senior Long Yuan. Leave it to me. Long Yuan nodded in response. The second task is to negotiate with the administrators of the continent controlled by the Sacred Alliance in the Great Thousand Worlds. We currently need that continent, and I will personally handle this matter, Xiao Yin said. As for the third task, we will only start after the first two are completed. This involves linking the Dou Domain to the Great Thousand Worlds key continent. Xiao Yan's words spread across the square, filling everyone with excitement. Now, the Dou Domain already boasted 5 Heavenly Supreme Experts and more than 10 Earth Supremes. If this plan could continue as expected, the Dou Domain would expand even further, growing stronger. At that time, its influence in the lower dimensional world would overshadow that of other major lower dimensional alliances. Moreover, once a foothold was established in the Great Thousand Worlds, it would likely rival even the legendary Primordial Divine Clan. Undoubtedly, everyone attending this meeting felt immense pride, for they were all members of this rapidly rising superpower. As the Lord of the Dou Domain, Xiao Yin had even greater reason to be proud. His drive to expand the Dou Domain was simple. Since he had inherited the grand ambition of the former Emperor League leader, the Dragon Emperor, and had also joined the Pill God Clan's domain defense plan, Xiao Yin needed an even greater force. This strength could be drawn from himself, or developed through the Dou Domain. Xiao Yin was satisfied with the meeting. The more people involved, the greater the power. Many things had been cleared up this way. Since the development plan for the next few years had been set, it was time to conclude the meeting. From my perspective, there is still one matter. Just as Xiao Yin was about to announce the end of the meeting, Tuasha Ancient Emperor's voice resounded once more across the square. Xiao Yin and the others immediately turned their gaze to Tuasha Ancient Emperor, wondering if he had another suggestion. Ancient Emperor, do you have any suggestions? Xiao Yin asked. Well, it's nothing too big. Since we're planning to establish a new foothold in the Great Thousand Worlds, surely we need some plans for that base, right? The first step is to give the new base a name, said Tuasha Ancient Emperor. A name is crucial, for without a proper name, things won't go smoothly. We certainly can't call it Dou Domain in the Great Thousand Worlds. That's true, the crowd nodded in agreement. Xiao Yin too understood. The Dou Domain was a name for the lower dimension, but the new base in the Great Thousand Worlds would need a name that could attract powerful figures from all over the Great Thousand Worlds. It should be a name that shines like a beacon in that vast realm. How about calling it the Great Thousand Dou Domain? Long Yuan pondered for a moment before suggesting. Or perhaps Douqi Heavenly Domain. Since the Sacred Alliance's original continent resembles a flame, naming it the Heavenly Flame Divine Palace wouldn't be bad, said the Primordial Sacred Flame. The new base is meant to gather powerful figures from the Great Thousand Worlds, so in a sense, it's an alliance. Perhaps Heaven and Earth Flame Alliance would be more fitting. I think Domain of 10,000 Flames sounds good too. As Tuasha Ancient Emperor opened the topic for discussion, everyone began suggesting names. Xiao Yin, at the top of the square, listened to each one but found none to his liking. Although the names you've suggested are fine, they don't quite hit the mark. Tuasha Ancient Emperor interrupted the discussions once more. So, Ancient Emperor, what do you think should define the name of this new base? Xiao Yin asked. This is a very obvious matter. Since the purpose of the new base is to attract powerful figures from the Great Thousand Worlds, why do these figures come to join? Tuasha Ancient Emperor asked. Dou Domain is indeed strong, but its strength alone isn't what attracts many powerful figures. The real reason is Xiao Yan's personal reputation. Whether it's the 10,000 Pills Gathering or the Fire Spirit Clan, the name Flame Emperor Xiao Yin has spread throughout the ears of everyone in the Great Thousand Worlds. So, the name of the new base should immediately make people think of Flame Emperor Xiao Yin. The crowd, which had been discussing names, now started to agree with Tuasha Ancient Emperor's idea. They nodded their heads and listened attentively to what he said next. Long Yuan's suggestion of Great Thousand Dou Domain and Dou Qi Heavenly Domain clearly do not revolve around Xiao. They refer to the ancient Dou Qi continent. While understandable, they are not suitable, Tuasha Ancient Emperor continued. Naming it after the shape of the continent isn't necessary, but adding the character Flame to the name wouldn't be a bad idea, as it would help proclaim the name of the Flame Emperor. So, the new base could be called Flame Domain. However, Flame Domain alone is too plain. We should add another symbolic word to it. What should we add? Long Yuan asked. In my opinion, we should add something that signifies infinity. Since the new base is near the extraterritorial lands, it symbolizes that the Flame Domain will guard the Great Thousand Worlds. And with the powerful figures from the Great Thousand Worlds joining, this protection will be endless, ensuring the prosperity of the Great Thousand Worlds for all eternity. Such a name will also attract more ambitious individuals from the Great Thousand Worlds, Tuasha Ancient Emperor said. Thus, the final name should be 4 words, Endless Flame Domain. Ha! Endless Flame Domain is a great name, Tuasha Ancient Emperor chuckled. Xiao, at the top of the square, smiled faintly but then spoke. However, I personally think the character Flame is unnecessary. It feels too much of a spotlight on me. Ancient Emperor, there's no need to worry so much about me. If my name were directly attached to it, I wouldn't feel comfortable. So, in my opinion, how about simply calling it Endless Fire Domain? Endless Fire Domain? Heh, that's not too bad, Tuasha Ancient Emperor said. Then, let the new base in the Great Thousand Worlds be called Endless Fire Domain. With Tuasha Ancient Emperor's approval, the name was quickly embraced by everyone present. Soon, Endless Fire Domain became the unanimous choice, and Xiao officially announced, "This meeting has now concluded. Over the next few years, we'll see how much the Dou Domain can grow, and whether Endless Fire Domain can take root. Let us wait and see."